Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien. Lead! And Livingston have the lead! Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates. And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football, and proudly sponsored by Strana Apparel. My name's Euan, and today I'm joined by Angus. Angus, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, football-wise, it's not been a good one, has it? I don't think that there's much that we can really say that we're not going to, we're going to fully dive into it when we get to talking about that game. But out with that, pretty decent weekend. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be maybe not one of the more fun episodes, Ewan, as we've maybe enjoyed this season, or maybe in any other kind of seasons. But as usual, we'll put on a brave face and we'll come and discuss all the things that have happened. What about yourself, mate? How are you doing?
Yeah, it was good to have a wee week off from podcast duties. Obviously watching Scotland at home to Cyprus and then to Spain. Caught up with a few familiar faces to this podcast. Callum Brown was back over from France, so caught up with him a couple of times. Had a few beers and whatnot. Probably had too many beers on the Saturday. I felt like death on the Sunday afternoon. But obviously that phenomenal night on Tuesday against Spain, one of the probably best nights I've experienced at Hampden as a Scotland fan. And then obviously football has that way of bringing you back down to earth with an almighty bang, doesn't it? And Livingston FC did not disappoint with that on Saturday. It only took them 8 seconds, but we'll obviously get into that pretty shortly. As always, you can find this episode as well as all our others on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi, so follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll kick things off by discussing our trip to Paisley as a first-half horror show sees Lions fall to an emphatic defeat in Paisley.
Our women's team were in action during the international break. We'll round up all the action and look ahead to their run into the end of the season.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our trip to Fir Park as Livy look to win there for the first time since the 26th of October 2002 against Motherwell. It was a trip to Paisley for the Lions to take on St Mirren in a clash that could prove vital in the battle for the top six. VAR penalties, tactical changes, and an overall subpar performance would contribute towards a 3-0 defeat for Livy. Yeah, Ewan, are those three things that you just kind of mentioned there the main reasons, for a dreadful afternoon in Paisley?
Yeah. to make it very brief, yeah, I think all those things contributed to what was a pretty, especially first 45 minutes, dismal first 45 minutes. Well, we'll come on to talk about the tactical side of things first. We had mentioned, I'd made a point of saying when we did the preview for the game that Davy seems to have a habit when we go to St Mirren trying to match them up, going with 3-5-2. And we did that earlier in the season when we lost there 2-1, conceding that late goal. He's gone with the same tactic again. What was your initial thoughts on seeing that lineup?
I guess I didn't have too much of an issue perhaps with the shape. As you mentioned, we went to that kind of formation before against St Mirren. One thing I would say is that whenever we went back to that kind of shape this season, things don't seem to have went well for us. But despite that, I was probably a bit more frustrated with the team selection than anything. I think that it was a bit, I don't want to say defeatist, but it seemed as if it was like we're trying to shore up rather than thinking that, we could go and cause them issues. I don't think St Mirren are that great a team that we should be making such wholesale changes to kind of be combating them. I think they're a decent enough side, but I don't think that they're anything, that out there, the realm that we should be, looking to keep it a bit more secure or whatnot. I think one of the big ones for me as well, Euan, is as soon as you see Curtis Guthrie in that starting lineup instead of Bruce Anderson, you know the kind of game that we're going for. You know that whenever we're getting the ball, it's just kind of going to be going long, and there's not really going to be not much of a thought to be kind of actually trying to play much, decent enough football. You're kind of hoping for those kind of flick-ons and that. And against, a defence like St Mirren's, like Gallagher, Shaughnessy, Dunn, they have plenty of options in that back line who they could put in there who are all very, very capable, even like Alex Gogic. I'm not sure that's maybe the right way to go against it, whereas we do have some trickier players. And I think for me, that's maybe the most kind of disappointing as it is we've kind of went to that route rather than believing in our own ability where we've had decent enough players. I'd also say that the mission of Christian Montano is one that was quite surprising for me as well. I don't know if there's like kind of fitness concerns in there, but again, one of our main attacking outlets this season, contributing with the formation change. Him and Nupley, whenever they've been on the left-hand side, have been great together. So I don't know if maybe that's kind of played into things. But yeah, I think that straight away didn't breathe much confidence. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I've listened to Davy's comments after the game, and I get it. I get his thinking behind it, having the three centre-halves in there to combat the likes of Curtis Main, Tony Watt, having that extra cover for defending cross balls, set plays, which St Mirren have been very productive from this season. And I kind of get the attitude of bringing Guthrie in for that sense as well, as having another body at defending. But listening to Davy's comments, it was all about, as you said, it was about defending against St Mirren rather than that attacking output from us. And I think we've got enough players, enough quality on our side that we can cause St Mirren problems. And I feel we shouldn't be making wholesale changes to how we play to take on St Mirren. And if you look at the previous couple of games we've had, the performance against Dundee United, the game against Ross County as well, we looked back to ourselves in those games, playing our usual setup, which is a 4-3-3 or a 4-3-2-1, however you kind of want to look at it. And we've been effective in those couple of games playing how we've played for the vast majority of the last two seasons. So for me, I feel I get maybe having a tactical tweak or things like that when you're going away from home to play the top sides in the league. I felt it was very defeatist and don't get me wrong, St Mirren have had a good season, but they were sitting a point below us in the league in 7th. I felt it was a bit defeatist from the get-go in terms of trying to contain them. But what I will, and I'll go on to it, but the penalty award in the first minute of the game, it throws any sort of tactics out the window, just about any game plan that you might have had out the window straight on. And the penalty decision was right in front of us. We feared the worst as soon as it flicked off Luigi De Lucas's hand, and we were expecting it to go to VAR, which it eventually did. It took, I think Stephen Thompson said it on Sportscene, 3 minutes and 16 seconds to get to the decision, but I believe there was a lot of to and fro over an offside. And then Mark O'Hara's dispatched it, which he's done on numerous occasions already this season. And you're up against it straight from the get-go. And as I say, it almost throws any game plan that you'd set up for out the window in the first minute. But it rattled us. It clearly rattled us, that decision early doors, because in possession, I thought we were hopeless in possession. And I thought without the ball, we were getting pulled all over the park. St Mirren looked more aggressive than us, hungrier to win 50-50s. And we were lucky to still be in the game. I mean, we did have a couple of opportunities in that first half. Nubley had an effort, which he's put well wide. But then St Mirren have gone 2 goals up. And the defending, there's no other way to put it, the defending's pathetic for the second goal. And we've switched off at a throw-in. Curtis Main's got in between 2 of our centre-halves and Boys and Fitzwater. the Lucas, I don't think he knew where Tony Watt was in the whole build-up to that goal. And then Watts, rounded Shamal George and had an easy tap-in the end. And it could have been 3. Curtis Main had an opportunity where, tell you what, if I was Stephen Robinson, I'd be going off my head at him for trying to dink Shamal George in that instance instead of putting his foot through it. And then we had an opportunity from Newbley, probably the first passage of play where we played any form of football in the game. And Newbley had that header at 2-0. If that goes in, it could make it a different game. But we then get punished again with another VAR penalty for handball. I'm not 100% sure what Jason Holt's doing. I get there's the flick-ons from pretty close by from Curtis Main, but if you're going about the 18-yard box with both hands above your head, you're just running the risk of giving away a penalty, and that's what's happened, and O'Hara's dispatched that as well. Again, Shinnie had a speculative effort, which has come off the underside of the bar in the post, which I think just summed up the afternoon for us, really. Second half, it was better, but it's easy to play when you're 3-0 down. And I'll use our game against Kilmarnock as an example. We were 3-0 up in that game. The job was done. And we probably gave up a lot of possession in the second half and just tried to see the game out. And that's kind of what St Mirren did. Albeit we had a good handful of opportunities. Montano had a header saved by Carson. Devlin's had one which is just put past the post. Newbley had a good opportunity, 1v1. He's put wide. We also had a penalty claim from Stephen Kelly, which did get looked at, but I think it would have been in the soft category, which he had when he turned Gogic, I think, on the edge of the box. And then Stephen Kelly had an effort later on, which Carson's tipped over. But the first half performance was so bad, and we deserved nothing from that game. I've seen a few folk try to defend us saying we created these opportunities, but for me, we created all these opportunities when the game was gone. And as I say, it's a lot easier to play a game of football when you're 3-0 down. And it's so disappointing coming away from that game after that performance, because it was a massive game. We could have essentially had 1 foot in the top 6 looking at that game had we gone there and won. And I felt we should have gone with the attitude. And I'm not saying the players didn't go there with the attitude, and not saying the manager was setting up to be defeatist or anything like that, but from a fan's perspective, that's how it came across. And I felt we should have gone there with a bit more of a positive mindset of going, we could make a real push towards the top 6 coming here and getting a positive result. And as I say, the penalty decisions don't help in the game. It essentially meant that the game got completely away from us. But see, had St Mirren scored 3 goals from open play, I would have had no arguments in that first half either.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very frustrating afternoon, and I think it's just that manner that you're on about is exactly what is more kind of hard to take about it, because you don't want to see your team kind of be, battered regardless, but in that kind of manner as well is just very, very poor. I think going back to that Inverness game, we've mentioned about how there's at times been a lack of the things that we usually do well. And I just seem to come completely back there again. And I don't know what it is with that. I don't know if there's players who are maybe a wee bit too, are players a bit too comfortable or whatever like that, or, is there not an awful lot for them to play for? I'm not too sure, which, seems baffling considering, the opportunities for a top 6 are there. But yeah, but I don't know if as well we're trying to kind of shore up a little bit more. Maybe, because of, how kind of poorly we've been kind of performing in those ways, that we keep on kind of going back to we're putting all of our focus on these ways to try and shore things up, which is obviously not doing any good for us at all. I think, now I guess you've maybe got to look at it and, maybe we've got to go and do the opposite. We're shaky at the back at the moment. We're not, winning the 50-50s. We're not that battling side that we've known for the last couple of years. Why not? Let's go and get maybe a little bit of a style change, maybe have the actual ball players playing a wee bit more. You can have the likes of Anderson playing, Bradley, Kelly, who have all kind of disappeared from the starting 11 in these kind of this past month or so. For me, for the rest of the season, that's what I would kind of want to see. Obviously, the top 6 isn't away from us yet, but in all honesty, I'm not massively confident that we're going to get into it. So we're going to have, 8 meaningless games for the most part, in all honesty. If we don't get 7, if we don't get a good result against Motherwell there, obviously there's a lot to play for, and maybe it's a wee bit too soon to be writing ourselves off. But the performances and the kind of the manner of what we've been playing, I think, kind of justifies it. It's all good, playing well against Kilmarnock and Ross County and that, but teams who are around like our level, in the middle of the park, we're just not performing against it. And yeah, it's incredibly frustrating because I think we all know what this team's capable of. We all know what these players are capable of. I mean, you look at it, this team at this kind of point last season, I think we'd been going for a wee bit of a shaky kind of patch, but we still had that faith and belief that we could go on and do some things. It's largely the same team that we have, bar kind of a couple of changes in there. Obviously, except I like swapping like Obalai for like the boys or George for like Striek and that, whatever. It's not too much of a difference in there, so we know what can be done. And it's just that is where obviously the frustration is coming from, you, and that we know that this team is capable of much more. The players will know that they're much capable of much more, and the manager will do as well. And again, it's just how important is it then for us to not get caught up on this, put it behind us, and then obviously try and take what's went wrong here and implement it correctly in the future.
As I say, it's incredibly frustrating, and I was talking about this at the game. You talk about trying to almost shore up and combat teams rather than taking the game to them. And there was aspects of the starting 11 I could absolutely understand. For example, the midfield three had played very well against Dundee United and Ross County. I wasn't upset seeing Shinnie, Hope, Pittman being your midfield three that started because they've played very well the last couple of games. So you can't look at that and say one of them deserves to be dropped from the team. I'll give a bit of credit to Scott Pittman. I thought he was probably one of the only players that deserved any pass marks in the first half of that game. I thought he was doing what you'd expect Pitts to do. He was biting into tackles. He was breaking from the three in midfield, trying to get up in support of the likes of Newbley and Guthrie when he could. And he was the one player I would have given pass marks to in that first 45 minutes. But as you say, the drop-off in the level of performances from January up until now, maybe that's a little bit harsh given the last couple of games prior to the international break, but the drop-off in performances has been quite drastic. And I don't want us to have another season like we did last year where you sat at the end of the season and went, what if? It's getting into that bracket and I don't want it to. And as you say, we've still got every opportunity of reaching the top 6. But I do feel that if you want it to be a really memorable season and be looking at European football, we're going to have to start picking up results prior to that split. And that starts at Motherwell next week. And our record at Motherwell is, to put it bluntly, catastrophic. We've not won there, as you mentioned, the 26th of October 2002. And Motherwell have obviously hit a bit of form as of late since Stuart Kettlewell's been appointed.
Put that into perspective, Euan. So I'm 26. The last time that we won against Motherwell was on exactly my 6th birthday.
So, yeah, it's frightening. It's frightening that it's been that long. But yeah, as I say, there's kind of circumstances in the game where you can look at a little bit in terms of conceding that penalty so early on. It does probably throw any sort of game plan that you have out the window early on in that game, but it's how we responded to it, which was so disappointing. As I say, there wasn't really anyone in our 11 that could come away with pass marks. We looked poor on the ball. Anytime we got the ball, we looked panicked on the ball. And you need to give a lot of credit to St Mirren in that regard because they pressed us very high up. They didn't allow us to get out, play out. And they put a lot of pressure on us, but it was just everything was so slack and lacklustre, I thought, after that goal. And St Mirren looked like a team that knew how big a game that was in terms of the context of potentially reaching the top 6. And we didn't react to that. And that's what's really disappointing in that game for me. And we need a reaction from that. And normally the players have been over recent years when Davy's been involved with the club, they have been good at providing a reaction to setbacks, and hopefully they they can provide one next week at Motherwell. But that game's become very difficult because Motherwell are sitting in a bit of form just now, and they've got an opportunity to potentially sneak in there if they continue to pick up results between now and the split and results go in their favour. So they'll close the gap to us to 3 points if they go and win on Saturday. So there's an incentive there for them. So am I worried going into these last few games? I'm a little bit, and I wouldn't have said that. Looking at January, I would have fancied us wholeheartedly to get into the top 6 on the form that we were in. And yeah, it's, as I say, it was such a disappointing performance in so many regards on Saturday. In particular, that first 45 minutes was just a catastrophe from quite literally minute 1.
Don't really think I can add much more to that. As you said, we need a reaction from that. But yeah, we'll talk further in depth about the Motherwell game a wee bit later on.
We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livi.
Our women's side have been in action whilst we've been away. We'll round up all the action, starting with a top-of-the-table clash with Rossvale visiting the Tony Macaroni Arena. It would end 2-2, despite the Lionesses leading the game twice. Angus, you were at the game. What did you make of the performance?
Another frustrating one, to be honest with you, Euan. Again,
seems a common theme this week.
Slightly more positive than obviously the men's one, but yeah, I think, we've kind of talked about it late that, there's been quite similarities between the men's and the women's team where there's been a lot of struggles in, creating chances in open play. And I think that was quite clear in this fixture against Rossvale here. We would take the lead through, one of the few times that we were, kind of breaking the lines. I think Brogan Anderson plays a great pass to Beth Mackay, who gets tripped in the box. We get a penalty from that, and, it's a great start in that way. And I think that you're hoping from that you're going to kind of continue that on. You're going to start keeping those kind of passes going. But it seemed to be, one of the last kind of chances that we kind of created ourselves in open play for the rest of the game, which is obviously quite disappointing. I think as well, the 3-5-2 that we had, we were getting kind of caught out. I think Rossvale went with like a forward 3 themselves, and there's quite a lot of times it was ending up 3v3 in our back line. And if it wasn't from good defending from the free centre defenders, that, we would have had maybe a couple of more opportunities against us. One of those times, though, was when, the 3v3 worked in Rossvale's favour and they were able to get in behind. The centre half has to go and, cover the space or go to the person with the ball, leaving another person open who could just, dink the ball into the back of the net. And then, going into the second half, I have to say that Rossvale were probably the team who had a bit more of the momentum. Jess Murphy gets a goal from a corner, which seems to just be, something that you just expect nowadays.
Pretty standard from Jess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think maybe there's a wee bit of a concern that you'd maybe have that we're relying on that a wee bit too much. Quite a lot of the last kind of couple of games where you're relying on set pieces, whether it be, obviously Jen scored a penalty in this game, shooting from free kicks or just corners or free kicks. We're hoping that that's going to create us the opportunities rather than, doing it ourselves, which I have to say is maybe a wee bit disappointing considering, we know that the quality we have on the ball. You look at that midfield, it was Gemma Mason, who you're a big fan of, Shannon Mulligan and Brogan Anderson, who, all should be kind of decent enough players to get on the ball. I think there was like a shape change kind of made, well, slightly. I think Ashley Fish went off quite early in the second half. I don't know if it was like an injury. And usually we also have like the three with the kind of like two wing back / wingers, two midfielders, the 10, and then the two strikers. Brogan would then go up front, but it would only leave two players in the middle of the park still, nobody coming in there, and then also a right winger as well as a right wing back without, but still with a left wing back as well. And I don't know if that didn't quite help us either in terms of trying to create those chances through the pitch. Whereas I think Rossvale, I believe, were a 4-3-3, which allowed them to to keep on keeping us outnumbered in those kind of defensive situations where it was only kind of maybe a matter of time before they were going to kind of create a chance. Unfortunately for us, it came through, a slack back pass from us goes in, and I think it was a trialist for Rossvale who made, an absolutely cracking, impression on their debut with, a great finish. But I don't think anybody can really complain about, it being a draw. I think that it's one of those ones that people will be talking about as like one of those kind of battling performances. I'm not too sure. I think that it was maybe just we were a bit off it, and that on another day Rossvale probably could have taken it, but I think definite improvements were maybe needed, and then that obviously takes us next to the game that occurred yesterday, Euan, against Hutchison Vale, the 3-0 win. Unfortunately, none of us were able to get to that there, but 3 goals, a clean sheet seems to be a decent enough reaction to kind of a performance that wasn't what we'd kind of expect or kind of hope from. Because I went to see them play against Renfrew away from home, and the performance, that I think that was what we've kind of talked about with the battling kind of side of things, where like the kind of the clear effort and those kind of tendencies have been very, very obvious. In the Rossvale game, it seemed a bit strange, and I don't know if it's maybe just that Rossvale are a wee bit of a bogey team. They're the only team to have beat us at home this season, which was in one of the cup competitions, and obviously they became only I think the second team to take points off of us at home as well. So maybe it's just that they have a wee bit of a know how to get around the system that maybe a lot of teams don't. But still in a decent enough position, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. They're sitting in a very good position, despite maybe dropping a few points in recent weeks. The draw with Rossvale, as you said, they are drawing at Renfrew, which in the grand scheme of things, given they're their closest rivals, aren't bad results at this stage of the season, because it keeps that gap sitting at what it is. I think, I haven't got the league table in front of me, but the girls are sitting on 59 points just now. And if my maths is correct, Angus, I believe if they were to win their next 4 games, they do go on to win the league pre-split. So, there's a big incentive there for the girls to try and keep stringing these wins together. And they managed to do that on Sunday. As you mentioned, unfortunately, neither of us were able to make the game, but it was a 3-0 victory through in Edinburgh. Goals from Shannon Mulligan, Sharon Hughes-Lee and Brogan Anderson would seal the result. But they've got games against teams in the bottom half of the league, other than Inverness, I think, who are in the top 4 currently, between now and the end of the season. So it's games that you would expect the girls to go and pick up maximum points from. So there's a massive opportunity here before they need to go and play head-to-heads again with the teams in and around them, that they could wrap up the league and promotion, which would be fantastic for them. But as you said, that Rossvale game's another example of the girls grinding out results this season, from what you're saying. Again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I'm struggling with Sundays just now, but it was another example of that. And from what I've seen of Rossvale the last couple of seasons, they've been by far and away one of the better sides in the league, and one of the teams I've been quite impressed with every time I've seen them. So it doesn't surprise me that they've proved to be a bit of a bogey team for the girls, because I think they try and play football the right way, and they've got some very good technical players in amongst their team as well. So that doesn't overly surprise me that they feel confident enough to come to Livi and try and impose their game on them. But it's testament to the girls that they still ground out a result, which, as I say, keeps that gap between them and their nearest rivals to what it is just now. So there's a massive incentive going into the tail end of the season in these next 4 games, in particular pre-split, where they can go and potentially wrap up what the overall target was at the start of the season, which was the league title and promotion.
Yeah, very much so. Continuing getting the points on the board, I think, can't mind if it was Renfrew or Rossvale, I think also dropped points quite recently against Ayr United as well. So I think that, although we've kind of maybe been dropping a wee bit more than lately, I think it's still overall better than, what the competition around us has been doing as well, which is always a massive positive. And, I guess towards the end of the season, it is about, getting over the finishing line. It's about getting, those kind of points secured on the board. Also, we've got a great chance to, to further cement that on Tuesday, which I guess we'll do a wee bit of a preview for now, against Drybrough, who I think the last time that we saw Livingston play Drybrough, Euan, I think I was very, very impressed with Drybrough. I thought that they were a very, one of the teams I've seen provide a massive attacking threat. And, going off of the basis of that last game against Rossvale there, with how, maybe open we were at the back at times, I think that this is a game that we need to be fully at it, because I think the thing that I picked up from that Drybrough ones was like how athletic they were, and how they'll be making those forward runs, and it could be something that could be causing us a couple of issues if we're like that again. But yeah, we obviously usually talk about like the men's kind of games and like this kind of way. Euan, is there, are you making it along to Tuesday? And if so, what kind of, starting 11 would you maybe want to see against a team who offers, this kind of an attacking threat?
Yeah, I should make it along for Tuesday. I've got a house viewing earlier on, just after I finish work, but I should make it along for the Tuesday game. And the last game I happened to be at was the Drybrough game that you're talking about, and we managed to sneak it late on, coming from behind in that game as well. And I felt from that game Drybrough were incredibly unlucky not to come away with anything from the game. They deserved minimum a point, if not potentially 3, and it was, to be honest, a save from Charlotte Ferguson at 1-1 that probably won the game for the girls in the end. And as you say, that game, it relied on a couple of set plays to get us over the line, and it was goals from the Murphys, Raywin and Jess that got the victory in that one. But it's something they'll need to be cautious of. As you said, going by what you're talking about in the Rossvale game, we were almost left 3v3 at the back at times. Whether that's something that Drybrough will try and take advantage of and make it almost a bit basketball-like, and try and make the game a bit end-to-end. But the girls have got plenty of quality to go and win the games. And, I'd like to see us from the get-go just impose our game on them. Looking at a couple of games that I've been at this season, when they have got the ball down and tried to play through the thirds, they've been very effective when they have done that. At the weekend, I noticed Brogan Anderson was on the bench. I don't know if there was anything tactical in that, but I think Brogan's really key in terms of linking the game between the middle of the park and the front two, which has typically been Ashley Elizabeth and Jen Dodds this season. So I think it's vital that you get the 3 of them into the side. And you mentioned earlier on, I'm a big fan of Gemma Mason. I think she's one of the better ball players in the side, and is keen to get her foot on the ball and try and spray the play out and find the touchline with playing those kind of big diags across the pitch, which I'm always a big fan of. I used to do that when I played centre mid, and no video evidence of that, might I say, Angus. But yeah, I think need to go and try and impose our game plan on Drybrough and from the get-go and see what we can do. But it's a big opportunity to get another 3 points on the board, which would push towards getting to, as I say, that target which was set at the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm sure the team would like to, keep up the winning ways off of the result off of yesterday. For me, I would like to see a bit more from the midfield in this game. As we talked about there, there's, not many chances being created in, an open play, as well as, maybe leaving, the defence a wee bit like insecure. I think that comes from, not only kind of like in the middle of the park, but from the wide players as well. So it'd be good to just kind of see that kind of combined effort, both attack and defence, to try and, as you say, impose our game upon them, because, there's plenty of capable enough players in there who can, turn the game very much in our favour. So yeah, hopefully we're going to see a performance that, we deserve to see, don't we, after, the kind of couple of weeks, after the weekend there we've had with the men's team letting us down. Hopefully that a show could be put on, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The game against Drybrough the last time, they were a very good attacking side. Hopefully we'll be up to the task as well, and it'll be a cracking one under the lights. People can obviously now get tickets quite easily through online services, as well as, I think there'll still be the pay at the gate option. I believe it's 7:45 kickoff, right?
7:45 kickoff, and you can get your tickets through the Fanbase app, which is incredibly easy to use. So I would encourage anyone, if you're at a loose end on Tuesday night, get down and support the girls in their charge towards the championship title.
the Lions travel to Fir Park this weekend, looking to end a near 21-year hoodoo against Motherwell. Euan, I think obviously our opinions were made very clear in our coverage of the St Mirren game there. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
Dreading it. Dreading it, because at Motherwell, the thing is that since promotion, we've had some performances at Fir Park which have been very good. Go back to when Keegan scored that spectacular free kick in our first season back up. Drew one each, probably should have won that game. But then later that same season, we were 3-0 down inside 25 minutes at Fir Park, and it was arguably one of the worst 45 minutes under Gary Holt. Again, used as another example, the 2 each game start of the COVID season, where Dykes and Forrest scored. Again, probably should have won that game in the end. And once again, later that season, we lost 3-1, and it was one of our worst performances of that season. So we're very hit or miss performance-wise at Fir Park as well. And combined with that, as you mentioned, it's October 2002 was the last time we won there. It was a 5-1 win, which I would kill for at the weekend. It would be a glorious way to end the hoodoo at Fir Park. But you're coming up against a Motherwell side that seem an absolutely different animal since Stuart Kettlewell's taken on the job. It's 1 defeat in 6, which was 2 Rangers. And I know, looking on paper, Motherwell do have the worst home record in the league this season. It's only 3 wins, but 2 of those have come up since Kettlewell's been in charge. I think he's opening 2 games, wins against St Mirren and Hearts. So against teams that have been very, very good this season as well, on the whole. So it's a very different animal that we're coming up against Motherwell. And they've had a lot of personnel changes probably since we last played them as well, not just on the management side of things. They had a lot of players recruited in the January window as well, but I think in that panic window, thinking they were going to be in a relegation scrap, and to the extent that I saw Harry Payton sign for them, which I didn't even know about until I watched Sports Scene until the end of the season, the ex-Ross County player. So obviously Stuart
I think he
Kettlewell
actually just signed this week, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. I was unaware until I was watching the highlights on Sports Scene and they said Harry Payton. I was like, when did he sign for Motherwell? But yeah, as you say, it was that week. But so there's a few players that have come through the door at Fir Park. You know, off the top of my head, likes of John Obika, who's well known to Scottish football fans from his time at St Mirren. Callum Butcher, again, another familiar one coming up from down south, used to be at Dundee United as well. So there's a lot of players that have come through the door, but they have been a very, very different animal, as I say, under Kettlewell. And that's what makes me worried for the game. We are not in great form. We are 1-1-6, coming up against a team that have only lost 1 in 6, and going to a ground that statistically we've been very poor at over not just recent years, loads of years. So yeah, it doesn't fill me with a great deal of confidence for it. And do I think we're capable of going and getting a result against Motherwell? I absolutely think we're capable, but I also feel that we need to go there and try and impose ourselves on Motherwell. That's my big thing for going into this game.
Yeah, can we and will we are very much 2 different things right now. Can we, if things are going well? Absolutely. There's no reason why not. But, you know, as we're seeing, there's also no reason as to why Motherwell probably could turn us over 3-0 with the way that we've been, you know, responding to adversity this season. We've only picked up 3 points as well from losing positions. If we go down a goal against Motherwell, which we have, you know, in most of the away games that we've played them, then, you know, are we kissing, you know, the game goodbye instantly? And if so, if our heads drop in that same manner that they have, you know, in the Hibs game, in the St Mirren game, in the Aberdeen game, obviously there's been a couple of red cards in there. Are we due for another, you know, heavy kind of loss in there, which is, you know, I think makes it a bit more hard to be a bit more confident and going to kind of places like this at the moment. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to hope that, you know, the team have had a kick up the arse, basically, and, you know, that they're working on things to try and cement it. I would imagine that there will be plentiful maybe changes. I don't know if there will be a same tactical kind of display from us. There will definitely be a response is needed. The players will know that, the manager will know that, and I'm pretty sure that that'll be the message getting fired through there. What would you be going for, or what would you like to see differently this week as opposed to, well, other than obviously just the general performance, but like in terms of, formations, players coming into the team, is there anything you think we could exploit or anything like that?
In terms of players I'd like to see come into the team, I'd like to see Stephen Kelly back in the side. I've been on this podcast before and spoke very highly of Stephen, and he offers us a good bit of variety in the middle of the park. I think Christian Montano for as well coming back into the side would be a biggie for me, because he's very positive when he gets the ball from deeper areas, and you can take 2 or 3 players out the game just by his direct play that he has when he does get on the ball. It's maybe a thought going back to that back 4, which we've played with majority of the season. Does De Lucas come out the side? Looking at the game on Saturday, he came up against a battering ram type forward and Curtis Main, and I think he got a bit of a wake-up call in terms of the culture of Scottish football. Sometimes he's coming up against one of the form strikers in the league in Kevin Van Veen. He's got 16 goals this season, and I actually went and looked at the figures. He scored 41% of Motherwell's goals this season. So he's certainly somebody that we're going to need to be incredibly wary of at the weekend. So do you maybe take De Lucas back out the side for that reason? Because Van Veen's very direct, very physical, and something else we're probably going to need to be wary of is dead balls again. Blair Spittle, a player I'm a big fan of. He's got a fantastic delivery from set plays. He's most assists for Motherwell this season with 5 in the league. So that's somebody that we're going to need to be very wary of as well. But yeah, I'd like to see us back to our usual shape. And that involves going back to a 4-3-3. I'd like to see Anderson back in the side because he needs a goal. I could almost understand Davy taking him out the side because he's I think his last goal came against Kilmarnock in that 3-1 win. He's maybe not been on fire this season the same way he was last year, but I just feel if we're wanting a goal and you're wanting a chance to fall to somebody, it's Bruce, and I would have him back in the side for that alone. Who you play either side of Bruce, Joel's a pretty nailed on certainty. Does Bradley come back into his side? Do you play Stephen Kelly in that front 3, which he has done on numerous occasions this season as well? That remains to be seen. Any changes that you would like to see, Angus?
Anderson has to come in for me. We need to win games. He's fit at the moment. As far as we know, he's our best goal scorer. We need to get him into the team. And yeah, we can't have we didn't have him for a good run in at the end of the last season as well, where he could have made a difference. We've got him available at the moment. Let's see if he can make that difference. I'd rather us be having this kind of a go, bringing like Bradley in that as well. I prefer to see these natural attacking players try and get us that edge in an attacking sense. Yeah, it's just hard to obviously get optimistic once a game's that been so bad recently. But we've got to kind of put that out of our system, and hopefully the right changes will be made, the right messages have been given, the right tactics are deployed, and hopefully we can go and make the difference there. Kind of poor runs have to come to an end at some point. The way that the league's been going this season, and anybody can take points off of anybody at a random time. Who knows? This may be one of those moments. Most of the kind of recent seasons we've had moments where a long run, winless run again at a certain stadium has come to an end. It's been a while since we've had one of that. Maybe this is going to be the one that we finally get off here. But yeah, we just need a much better performance this time round. If all fails, we need to see something that's encouraging at least, to kind of get like hope and momentum back up, especially for that St Johnstone game that we've chucked out 4,000 free tickets for as well. We don't want to be going into that one with kind of a damp atmosphere. People aren't, we want to be making the most of that with the kind of opportunity we have, and hopefully we do so. But yeah, I guess we go into predictions here, Euan. This will be a fun one, I guess. Are we going to be optimistic here, or are we going to be realistic, or are we going to be a bit silly?
Angus, if you go back and look at my predictions for the season, I don't actually know how many defeats I've predicted, but I think it could be on one hand how many defeats I've predicted if we went back and looked at it. So I'm going with a rarity. I'm predicting a defeat at the weekend. I think it's going to be 2-0 Motherwell. Folk listening to this podcast are currently stunned that I've predicted a defeat for Livingston. I've predicted us to go to Celtic Park and get a result this season, for Christ's sake.
I guess it's because I predicted the 1-1 at Ibrox and stuff like that, but I was kind of feeling the same way as you, I have to admit. It's hard to to see anything else other than this, just because of the poor kind of results that we've had there. Yeah, I'm really humming and hawing over joining you with that, or being a wee bit more positive. I think I'm just going to have to join you, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 loss here, which is probably even a more rare thing that we've both predicted a loss in the same fixture. Of course, we would love for nothing more than to be proved wrong with a great win, or even a draw, which could make a big difference. But yeah, time will tell. We'll see. Hopefully, a much better performance, and hopefully something that gets us back on track.
Hopefully some reverse psychology, because going by our predictions this season, typically, we predicted anything positive, it's come to bite us in the arse. So hopefully us both predicted defeats mean we end the hoodoo. And here's a wee come from of hope in terms of ending hoodoos. I think Davy Martindale has ended a long-standing hoodoo at Pittodrie, Easter Road, McDermott Park, Rugby Park. Since he's been in charge at the club, can he end the Fir Park hoodoo as well? Here's hoping. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all of our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for, let's be honest, a much better week following the Lothian's finest football team, because we need some bloody positivity to talk about, for Christ's sake.
Livingston, oh Livingston, the Almonville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division. Livingston, Livingston, Livingston.